Hi, Hafide. I'm Demi.
And I'm Mona.
Thanks for tuning into What's Brewing. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of What's Brewing, brought to you by Empowered Solutions. Thank you so much for all of the love you all showed us on our last episode. We're so grateful.
Yes.
We were looking at analytics and we were like, oh, people are actually listening. So we are very excited to record and continue bringing you these episodes, these pod episodes, since people are actually listening. I think that's always the hard part about podcasting, is because there's so many out there and there's so many options. The fact that people listen to us, it's like, okay, cool, we can continue to do this. So we appreciate it.
Being perceived.
Exactly. It's one of those things, like, we have to come out of our bubble and, do the episodes. But thank you so much for showing love on the last episode. If you haven't got a chance to listen to the last episode, that was our first episode up in 8, 9, 10 months. I don't even know at this point. It was a long time. So go check it out, because there is a special surprise in there. I don't know if anybody's ever made it to the end, but with that said,
I'm just realizing that. Hold up.
yes. So go listen, because opportunity is still on the table. But with that said, did put a poll out on our last post, and a lot of people said they wanted to hear about higher education and career. So we figured no better way than to do a podcast episode, kind of like a coffee date with Mona, about her doctoral program and what made her pursue it. So this particular episode is going to be all things career. However, I feel like we can probably record maybe 15 or 50 episodes regarding like higher education and career. But I figured this would be a good way to give the people what they want. So before we even jump into the topic, Mona, what's in your cup? How are you feeling? Are you sipping on anything?
I'm not, and I'm not even going to go and grab it, but I did buy this new cup. I've been really good at like thrifting my mugs. Most of my mugs are secondhand. But I went to this chain store, not even going to plug in names, and they had like the cutest little like vintage mug that had like a bunch of like waffles and pancakes and strawberries on it. So anyway, that was my mug of the day. But I am just having water. So if you're listening, this is your Sunday reminder to drink water. So that's what's in my cup. Overall, I mean, in my life cup, today has been a day. Demi and I, we have been on meetings and calls all days, to wrap up our day, to talk a little bit more about work is fun, So I'm feeling good. And on the topic too, I also have class later tonight. So I'm definitely crawling towards the finish line of just being able to like wrap up my day and rest and take some time for myself. But yep, that's me. What about you?
That's good to hear. Same. Like, we definitely had a lot of calls who were on the same wavelength as far as maybe energy level, but it's always good to wrap up our days with a What's Brewing episode. I'm feeling good though. However, this week there's just like club and another club and another club. That's what this week feels like. There's just a lot of things going on this particular week, and just closing out February. I think January was just such a long month that February's slower or slowed down, that I don't know, things are just moving very fast. So I would feel like I'm half and half, pun intended regarding coffee. I'm half and half. I'm half in, half out, half full, half empty.
Wait, I love that.
I'm just kind of there. Well, speaking of, that's how I'm feeling. What I'm sipping on, I just made this coffee really quickly. I had this cup and I was like, let me wash this cup out real quick and then refill it with coffee. I'm just sipping on some decaf coffee with sweet cream, Chobani sweet cream. That's my coffee of the day. I've been drinking decaf because I've been nursing, and my baby girl's very sensitive to caffeine. Yeah, it's been my thing.
I switched over to decaf like maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And honestly, I mean, it's just placebo effect. So long as I taste the coffee, I'm fine.
I just want the coffee taste. Like, honestly, the energy, the caffeine for me doesn't really matter. It's just like the taste of coffee. I like the taste of it.
Right.
Yeah, try the decaf if you want to get on the decaf wave. I feel like I'm like a grown-up now that I'm drinking decaf coffee. Right. But now that we have a temperature check, on how we're feeling, I figured we can jump into your doctoral journey and just talking about what made you decide to go back to school. So like, what made you pursue and what has the experience been like? So let's just jump into it. Why go back?
I'm going to, it's funny that we're having this be the podcast episode, because just last week, actually, I connected with a new friend who referred me to another new friend that I made who's also on their journey of actually getting their master's in social work. So from the same school that I'm getting my doctor's in social work. So we connected and of course they were asking some questions about like my journey, what made me go back to school. But I bring that up because after that call, I started to have a lot of reflection of like, oh wait, why am I kind of back like I don't know, not why am I back in school, because obviously I had to apply, so I knew the reasons why, but it just had me thinking a lot about also like my decolonization journey. So it's hard to talk about one without the other. But I think for me, I will admit, going back to school was very much this like white American dream elitism kind of thing, even if I didn't realize it at the time. It just felt like, I have to go to school and I have to work to the very top and get all the credentials and maybe people will take me seriously. Like I'd be lying if I said that that wasn't like an underlying thing, because I think it's very true, especially for a lot of like immigrant children who are like, just wanting that better life. You kind of equate it to education. But that wasn't the case for me this time around. I took a very long break. Well, it felt very long for me. I finished my master's of social work in 2021. So I was one of those like pandemic social workers. I did my field education, and this might be a whole other episode for anyone who's interested in the world of social work. Um, but when I graduated with my master's, I had thought I would immediately kind of like go into my doctorate's program, but I took a break. I took like 3 years, and a large part of that was honestly just being burnt out too. Like I was just way too burnt out. There was no way I was going to start school. But this time around, what had me actually say, you know what, I'm going to put the time aside, work on my applications, go back to school, really goes into just the power of knowledge and how I can reclaim my doctoral journey while I'm also on my decolonization journey. So it's been really insightful being in spaces, like hearing how other people work and operate, being exposed to things that I wouldn't have been exposed if I wasn't in my doctorate's program right now. So yeah, that was a very, very long answer to say I took some time. Part of it was me just trying to feed the ego. It's not that anymore. And it's part of my decolonization journey.
Yeah, I love that. I love how they go hand in hand, because I think oftentimes people romanticize the PhD journey and having the letters on their name.
Right.
And to your point, right, a lot of times it's like the American dream to like continue climbing the ladder and climbing the ladder, but you are really rooted in a purpose, right, for your program. So what would you say is like one thing you wish more people knew before applying or while applying? Like, why do
Mm.
it?
Well, I think for me, and I actually said this to the new friend I made, which was we have to remember, and let me preface with I'm talking about like graduate level education. So whether you're working on your master's or your doctorate, so like not undergrad, because I feel like that's kind of a different experience. But as you're working on whether it's your master's, your doctorate, your PhD, it's important to remember that you are offering something to these institutions, not the other way around. So as I was applying, I was actually very clear in my application that I knew I wanted to center my work around decolonization, that this is what I wanted to study. This is how I show up as an Indigenous social work practitioner. So it's very important for me to like reclaim my power, my experience, my story that I get to share with these institutions. So it's a bit of unlearning, because for a while it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm applying to school. I hope I get accepted. What is the school going to offer me? And I'm like, wait, hold on. Like I'm offering my gifts to the school as well. So that was like a huge shift for me. And then I was speaking to, well, sorry, my thoughts are a little all over the place. I had a sit down with someone who's already has their PhD, and they reminded me about, ask for funding. Like, do not feel like you have to go into so much debt, especially if you're applying to like a doctoral program versus like a professional doctorate versus a PhD, which that's a whole different conversation that, again, maybe another episode. But it was just that reminder of like, you don't have to feel like you're giving something, like you have to prove yourself to these universities and these institutions, that it should also be the other way around. Especially if, we're talking to indigenous folks, if you're Chamorro, Pacific Islander, Micronesian, whatever it is, and you're applying to higher education, it's like, just remember that you are bringing so much of yourself into this, that they should also be telling you, what are you going to give me? And why should I choose your institution to conduct my research? So that was one. And then number two is build your network, reach out to people. If you know someone that you've admired that has the same degree that you want, or someone whose career path is one you want to follow, reach out to them. I literally was just emailing people, texting people, messaging people on LinkedIn and being like, hey, like, do you have a couple of minutes to meet with me? Because you'd be surprised all the tips and tricks you'll learn that you would have never known if you went into the application process by yourself.
One of the things that you mentioned, well, two of the things you mentioned, networking, which obviously I think on it from jump, like even in high school, they tell you meet with people, meet with people, meet with people. But I think it really hits different in graduate level work. And then the second point that I really like, that what you're saying is, what can a school do for you, not the other way around? Because I think a lot of times too, speaking of not only academia, but career, when you go apply for a job, like, what is the job doing for you? Not what are you doing for the job? And I think a lot of times we tend to mold and fit ourselves into a role to be qualified for certain positions, where it's like, why do you have to change who you are in order to, one, get in this program or get a specific job role or job title? So I think that's actually a really good one that I didn't even think about, especially when you're talking about graduate level programming.
One of the folks I was speaking to, they're a doctor, and they got their PhD in sociology. And as I was explaining myself, I also actually had them review my, why am I blanking on the word? I guess my application essays or my short answers. And I remember them reading it and them coming back to me and saying like, Mona, why does it sound like you're trying to like sell yourself? Like, if anything, she was like, they are lucky to have you go to this school. And I was like, oh, wait, like, I feel I needed to hear someone say that to me. And she was like, yeah, like, I don't think you need to like be like sales pitch your way into this. I think like if you remain true and authentic to the work that you do and clear on your asks, they're either going to be the right institution for you or not. And I'll also add one more thing too, because I will admit, honestly, higher education, it can really be a scam. That may sound very controversial for some folks, especially as I'm in school right now. But seriously, like, we bring ourselves into so much debt. A lot of times people graduate with a degree and still have a hard time finding a job. I don't want to glorify it at all. For me, where I'm at is I'm really in the process of just trying to like gather more resources, expand what I know, my network, and really dive into, which my goal is ultimately, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, is I truly want to transform the world of social work in the Marianas. So it's important for me and my journey to be in this space to kind of understand what's happening behind the scenes, in the world of academia, research, and all of that, so that I can do what I need to do and make my moves. But that doesn't mean I'm going to compromise who I am or the things that are important to me.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because even though this is about your doctoral journey and higher education, this episode might be an episode for those that are thinking about going to school for graduate on the graduate level, and really ask yourself, like, do I need to do this? So this also might be a de-influence you to go back to school, because like you said, right now the job market is really tough. Like, I personally know people that are 7-8 months in and have yet to find like a good paying job at the master's and PhD level. So that's just something to take into consideration, is like, why are you going back to school? Are you doing it to appease others? Because oftentimes too, that's another thing. A lot of people go back to school for their family, for friends, status quo, ego, those types of things. Like, are you doing it for the right reasons? But to your point, you're trying to expand your network, your research, credibility, especially going back and doing the work in the islands. You mentioned a lot about decolonization, and a lot of this is tied to your academia journey. But one of the things that I can say personally is, for knowing you as long as I've known you, I can honestly say the past like few months, you've really been showing up authentically yourself, who you are, the way you wear your hair, your septum piercing out, just you, like this, what makes you you, what makes you comfortable, what makes you feel good. And that's something that I really admire about your journey most recently, is like we're both just showing up places, but I feel like you
Right.
really are embracing who you are. You mentioned in previous episodes, like your disabilities. So speaking of disability, showing up as who you are and tying it into career, academia, what would you say, how has the disability justice shaped the way you navigate these spaces? So work, life,
Mm,
school, just where you are in your journey right now.
this is a very good question. I want to start with a statement. If you are in school right now and you're listening to this and you have a disability and you have not reached out to the disability services at your university, please do. Like, these are resources available to you, whether it's additional time in test taking, needing extensions with your deadlines, needing to be, for me, because a lot of my classes right now are virtual, I'm able to turn my camera off when I feel like I just need a break, which is not best practice, especially the doctoral levels. Like, you want your cameras on, they need you to be engaged and all of that. So that's my first thing, is like, there are resources available. While not perfect, they're there. So if you're not tapping into that, please do. Go on your school's website, find their disability office or their accessibility office, and find out what resources are available to you, because why not? It's there, use it. The other thing too, which is definitely an episode, is when we think about disabilities, I know some people probably immediately think of like you're immobile, maybe you're in a wheelchair, your disability is visible, like I can see that you're disabled, even if it's not like a physical, like a bodily type of disability. If I can see that you look disabled, then that's valid, right? Whereas a person like me, which I really hate this term, like high functioning, like, oh, I'm a high functioning disabled person because, quote unquote, for society, I don't look disabled, right? Or how I can still live my life. Like, why do I need these supports? This is where, for me, I've been really like navigating what it means to be a disabled person in a world that doesn't view me as disabled, which is like, not only am I disabled, I still have to prove that I'm disabled too. I was like, what? It makes sense. And
Yep.
I'll put it this way, and I don't know if this is going to cause any trouble. Anyway, whatever. I'm not going to announce the university name, but if you follow me, you know the university I go to. I submitted my application for disability and accessibility support. I had my medical providers complete an entire form certifying that, yes, this girl is disabled. And then I submitted it. And on top of that, the school still wanted me to meet with them for a 1-hour intake, for them to ask me a bunch of different questions about my health. When I'm like, my doctor just signed off on all of this, like a literal medical professional. Like, you're not to say like, you're the intake coordinator person, but it's like, how much more do I need to like prove? And some of the questions were like, oh, so here on the document, it states that, I don't know, navigate the world of depression. How does depression impact you on a daily basis? I was straight up in that call like, girl, if I could tell you how depression impacts me on a daily basis, I would have gotten
You would have
my
mastered it. You would have mastered the depression and
right.
figured it out. Yeah.
I would not be on this call right now.
Right.
If I could predict and I could tell you. And some of the questions were like, what about the frequency? And I'm like, what do you mean frequency? I'm like, I'm a person of CPTSD as well. Like, that's the whole premise of PTSD, is like, I don't know when it's going to be triggered. So what do you mean frequency? So I'm on this call for a whole hour. The person was so gracious, but at the same time, it was like, here again, it took me at least a week and a half to even get the document signed from my medical provider, who I also had to explain myself to, and then also had to still explain myself to the school. And then now they're bringing it to a committee who has to vote on whether or not I am eligible for the accommodation. So I'm still waiting. I say all this to say, I'm just trying to get a little bit of extra time with test taking and being able to turn my camera off every now and then. Like, I'm not asking for any type of accommodation that's going to like flip the classroom upside down. So yeah, to answer your question, like how I'm navigating it, that's what it looks like right now. Like it's to even just get help, it takes almost a month. And in this past month, I've already needed support, but I haven't been able to access it because the process in itself is so bureaucratic.
Oh, man, I appreciate you sharing that like real life experience because I didn't
Yeah.
even know you were going through that. So for people
Yeah.
that, are wanting to, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's through school, or just your life, like the fact that it's an injustice to those that, are disabled and having to wait, like you said, a whole month and you needed the help and the assistance now. Why is it
Right.
taking this long? So it seems like navigating right now means advocating. Like you're advocating for yourself. And that's like the best thing that you can do in these spaces, which not being what I consider a disabled person, but I think that's one of the things is people think that disability is like physical, like you should be able to visualize it. And that's one of the conversations that needs to be had and normalized. And we need to break those barriers as not disability is not something that not every single disability is seen. I think there's a saying around
Yeah.
that, because
Yeah.
even there's times where I'll pull into the handicap spot. There's times where I'll pull into a handicap spot with my mom and I can't tell you how many looks we get like, why are you pulling into that spot? You look young, you look able, and then the minute my mom gets out and then we're walking, it's like, okay, people don't say things. But we've had people ask us when we were in handicap spots, like, why are you parking here? And I think it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, mind your business. Second of all, why are you already judging, the situation? I just
Right.
think
And
people
like,
invest too much time into what other people have going on.
yeah. And third of all, there's only like 3 to 5 slots that we can even park at. You have a whole parking lot to yourself. Like, we're already limited in so many ways. And I'm going to add like just one more little like tip or trick. If you are a person who has any type of disability, is also like pre-boarding. This has nothing to do with higher education, but I travel a lot for work, for fun, for life. And, if they're pre-boarding and you have like really bad anxiety, then pre-board. Like, take it took me a while to feel like I deserve these accommodations because I was also questioning my own disability. Like, am I really disabled? Because I live in a very able-bodied world that's telling me I'm not. And so, yeah, it's case by case and it's different for everyone. But I'm sorry if anyone is experiencing it because it happens every single day. But yeah, you said it best. Like, navigating for me right now is advocating for myself and hoping that people see me for what it is.
I love that. And to add to that, the airlines are not going to ask you like, oh, why do you need a pre-board? Like, even if you look,
Mm-hmm.
to your point, look at, and the reason I said it is because when I was pregnant, I was like, I wonder if there's a way I could get on this plane like earlier and not have to stand and stuff. And I won't mention the airline because there's so many to choose from, but I had asked same thing like, oh, do you do anything for like pregnant people? At the time, I wasn't really showing. She was like, oh yeah, you can just jump in line and pre-board. And I was like, okay, do they ask? And she's like, nope, you just jump in line. We don't ask, and we're not allowed to ask. So that's one of those things too, where I think that transition of advocating, sometimes advocating for yourself can be a scary thing. So most airlines, to my knowledge, the 3, 4 major airlines I've flown with when I was
Right.
pregnant didn't ask. So pre-board, especially if you need it, not saying take advantage of it, but if you need that moment, then definitely take it.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you
It's just
sharing. I didn't want
access
this.
to resources. That's what it is. Like,
Yeah, for
access to
sure.
resources. Yeah.
And that's like to your point of just because people can't see, right? Because that's like the fear is like when you jump in, like when I was jumping into line, I was like, people were probably like, what is this girl getting in line for? Not knowing that I was X amount of weeks, pregnant and I needed to be in
Right.
the line. Don't worry about what people are going to say, how people look. Because at the end of the day, we're all getting on this plane. It's taking us to the same place that we all need to be taken to, and we're getting off. Nobody's going to ask questions. So that's just what I hope for people is like when you advocate for yourself, there is a lot of like, how to explain this? Like you feel the need to be like validated, like, do I need to be in this line? Yes, you do. Get in the line, jump in the line. But I didn't want this episode to be too long because we're already 25 minutes in. And knowing Mona and I, if we don't pay attention to the clock, we'll be on calls for 3, 4 hours and wonder where the
Right.
time went. I do think that we can really build off of a lot of these episodes. Like, for example, just even an episode talking about disability justice. And that could even be another episode because I feel like it ties into just who you are. It's kind of like a full circle. Like, okay, your program, disability, sustainability, and fashion. So we'll definitely record another episode on that. I think that this was a good, quick, talking about your doctoral program and then talking about just disability and resources, tips and tricks to navigate and advocate for yourself. I think that's one of the things, like, we just want people to know that as you are listening to us through, whatever platform and whatever form, that we are here to advocate and give you tips and tricks as we are navigating, our life's journeys.
I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to add another minute to this podcast. Like, tying it all back to higher education, obviously it was a poll, so we don't really know why or like the reasoning behind what exactly people are looking to hear. But, I think I'll end with this. The whole world is crashing out right now. Like, there are 1,000,001 ways to be quote unquote successful. We're unlearning what that means to us right now. Like, before, successful was I'm living in a sky-rise apartment in like the downtown city, blah, 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 right? For me, success now is being able to like just have pockets of peace with the people that I love and living a slow and gentle life. And I didn't need a degree to do that part, right? So I think it's just really a matter of like that reassessment of where you're putting your time, your resources, your energy, what it is that you want to create and the gifts that you want to make. Like, this is part of that decolonization journey. It's not what I want to study and what I want to do for work. Like, we don't live to work. And I hope that we can continue to like have conversations like that. So for anyone who voted on the poll, I guess, if there's like a specific thing that you're struggling with or you need more clarity on or just need advice, DM us, and whether it's us or connecting you with like other folks that we know are doing really good job in like the higher education space, we'd be more than happy to, send them your way or, share more resources with each other. So just wanted to add that.
That was definitely a great minute to add to. Yes, slide in our DMs, comment, just communicate with us. We're definitely open to hearing your thoughts because this is what this platform is for. But thank you for tying that back together, because that is the thing, is like everything kind of just stacks. Like, all of this ties together. It's all a full circle moment. But thanks so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.
As always, thank you for your support and being a part of the WBP family.
Don't forget to rate and review our show on whatever platform you're listening on.